And call the public hearing for the 2018 budget to order. And my first order of business is to turn the meeting over to star of the show, our CFO, Brian Tomlin. Brian, the floor is yours.
All right, so I have 3 PowerPoints, and we'll go through that. If you have any questions, during that, please feel free to ask.
Just your chance for you to turn your chairs around.
Yeah. Everybody turn and face a little bit forward and feel free to help. All right, so I always like to start off with kind of a timeline of where we've been and where we're going. So we had our first advertisement on the 1st, second on the 8th to bring us to the hearing today. Moving forward is we'll have an adoption at our October 10th meeting, and then we are also doing an excess levy appeal and transportation, so that will have to be filed by the 19th. And currently, Ms. Bohan and I, along with Mike Reuter, are working on all that. All right, so some kind of basic terms and process of the budget. We work in 18-month forecast for spending the revenues, 3-year capital projects, 12-year bus replacement. Big thing with the budget is have to be advertised at the public hearing and then the adoption next month. And whatever we advertise, we cannot raise later. We want to reduce it. So as we go through this, you'll see, our actual advertised rate is over $2. We do not expect to actually get that, so we don't actually foresee our rate increasing next year. Looking at it, you're really only looking at the tax-rated funds, even though the general fund's in there as well. Tax-rated funds, you have your debt service, pension debt, capital projects, transportation, and bus replacement. Your general fund is state revenue, which is pretty much solely based on your students. So all of your local buckets down there are really what are dependent on your taxes. So some budget definitions is you have your levy, which is your actual local property taxes. Dwayne and I talked earlier today. It's what permission you're given from the state that you can collect. It does not mean that's what you're going to collect to a circuit breaker. Appropriations is your permission to spend. We can come back and do an additional appropriation request, which we'll probably do this year for the 17 budget. So you can always increase that or decrease it actually. And then your budget calendar always runs January through December. So looking at our budget for 18, we're currently advertised at $95 million. All these, once again, are a little higher than where we think they'll actually come in at, back to advertised high, and then as you come down, and then it will actually be, the net rate will be about where it was. So this is kind of hard to see from here, but what I like to do is point out where our 15, 16, 17 rates are. So you can see $1.90 to $1.74, $1.71. We advertised this year at $2.15. Realistically, we expect it to come back in at $1.71. So we put those projected numbers in there so you can kind of see where we realistically think we're going to be, even though our advertisement is higher than we thought. The other big thing for us is if you look at our gross assessed value this year, is the estimations that we've seen come out from the county puts us about $2.7 billion, which is almost a 10% increase again this year. So that's obviously a good thing, considering it should help lower our circuit breaker as we continue to move forward. So circuit breaker impact, the red's kind of hard, but you can I wanted to show you how we're getting affected every year over the last few years. So you can look back to 2014 where our levy was $37 million, we only actually collected $30 million. So our net circuit breaker loss was about 22%, and it remains today at about almost 22%, 21.75. So it's really always a challenge to make sure you're budgeting for that. The nice thing with us is it's pretty consistent. So realistically, we know even with the increase in AV, we're going to be around that 34 million. Now, if we get approved for the excess levy bill and transportation, then we'll probably be closer to 35. But when we truly set kind of the real budget behind the scenes, we're aiming at 35. We're not aiming at 42 because that's where we know we're going to be. So then kind of future budget concerns. House Bill 1009 last year. So starting in 2019, we're going to go from all the lovely funds you saw before down to basically kind of 3 main funds. You'll have your education fund, your operating fund, and then your debt service. So CPF, bus replacement, transportation are going to be lumped together into the operation fund. So with that, there's also in the future going to be a new process for a transportation levy appeal, so it's lumped together. So that's part of why it's really important that we go for that this year and get it this year so we don't have to deal with future requirements for that. Because once we get it, we have it moving forward, and we don't have to worry about that. So, you know, in the whole scheme of things, it shouldn't change too much. It's just going to change how the picture looks. You know, close to 7, you're going to basically have 3. The other big change, which doesn't necessarily affect the budget or advertising or anything, is the ESSA requirements, which basically every expense we have has to be tied to a building. The great thing is Ms. Bohannon currently has everything pretty well tied to a building as it is, so it's not a huge adjustment for us. There's still some discussion on how transportation gets affected in that, just because it's really hard to tie that to a specific building. So some of those are still being worked out, but luckily we are pretty good place on that compared to a lot of other districts. And so just to kind of summarize it, you know, we go high that way because we can't go any higher after it's advertised. And then if you kind of see is the 2017 advertised rate was $2.17. We came in at $1.71. So this year at $2.15, we actually lowered it 2 cents. We expect to come in around the same. So tax bills as a whole won't change at all. The nice thing for the district was if we can maintain that with the increase in the assessed value, we will probably actually see more money to our budget, which will allow us to hopefully get more things done and caught up. Any questions?
I just have one easy question. The gross assessed value, does that include the tip areas or not?
No. So, but that's also where it's kind of still fluctuating a little because I know Nick received the number from the county a few weeks ago, and then Mike Reuter provided us with a number that's slightly different. Looking at it though, like both of them have net at least 10.5%. I think the number Nick received was around 11, so we should be between 10 and 11% increase, which is amazing.
Right.
So, you know, those are all great things.
As long as you know it kind of works back to 34, 35 million
Yeah.
cash, that's what
Yes.
that's what. So, okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right. Well, hearing none, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing for the 2018 budget. I need a motion in a second, Beth. We'll do it just right then. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Take some time here before we have. So thanks, Brian. I'd like to call the regular school board meeting to order for the month of September. We have a quorum tonight. The board's here. I'd like to welcome everybody in attendance. We have quite a crowd, so thank you for coming out this evening. Appreciate you taking the time. First item is a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you'll please stand a moment of silence. You'll face the flag and recite with me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Be seated. Next item, superintendent's report. Dr. Gray.
So the first item in the superintendent's report is a recommendation for accepting the amended agenda.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion. Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Sure there's no comments or questions, so I'll go ahead. All those in favor of accepting the amended agenda as presented signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries, and we'll get to that here in a little bit.
Okay, so the next item is we have some visitors with us this evening, and so I would like to introduce our visitors, our leaders from Oak Trace, Mrs. Lynch.
Thank you, Dr. Gray. I am so happy to be here this evening, have a group of students from Oak Trace. These are student ambassadors. And Oak Trace, as many of you know, we are a class school that stands for Connected Learning and Assured Successful Students. And what that means is we take the Indiana academic standards, chunk them together in a meaningful way in a year-long curriculum map. Within that, we embed not only the standards and make connections as much as we can, but also connect in that social and emotional learning piece. And so one step that we took this year, in addition to our community circles we do daily, our welcome boards, agendas that all connect to those social emotional skills, we also developed our student council into a group of student ambassadors. So some of these students attended a 2-day seminar in Indianapolis this year with some community leaders in Indianapolis, where they learned about leadership qualities, and they are bringing that back this year into Oak Trace. And they are going to walk you through a community circle and an activity. So I'm going to turn over Mr. F. is our counselor, Mr. Beckety, and we've got Mrs. Hitch here, our assistant principal, Mrs. Higgins, and Mrs. Walker are both leaders with our ambassadors as well. So they are going to walk you through. Back here on the screen, I have the class website. It is joyofclass.org, and it has just many, many resources for our student ambassadors, home connections, and ways to include everything throughout the school day. So I'm going to turn over to Mr. F. and our student ambassadors.
All right. I'm supposed to introduce myself. So I'm Jason Beckey. It's a pleasure to meet you. Jason Beckey, pleasure to meet you. Pleasure to meet you, Jason Beckey. Mr. Beckey, yeah, correct. It's Jason Beckey. It's a pleasure to meet you. Pleasure to meet you. Mr. Baldwin, always lovely. Nice to meet you. All right, so what we've done kind of with the social emotional push, we've kind of done this since Oak Trace was open, since I've been around Oak Trace. At least as a class, school's been part of that. So we've kind of taken some things away and added some things. What we took away, we used to have 18 life skills. We pared it down to 10. And those kind of are up there. When you see lifelines, we're old school still. We call them life skills because we just didn't want to change all of the stuff that we had built that said life skills to lifelines at this point. How we made those lifeline choices was these. Let's see, we got 6 people plus 22 more. They chose what we were going to focus on this year. So we narrowed it down to 10. They reflect very similar pillars that we as a district are focusing on in SEL. A little bit of word change, but the concepts are still the same. So that's kind of how we came up with the lifelines that we focus on. So what we've done with that is we put on a calendar about every 3 weeks we're introducing a new life skill. So that gives the classroom and teachers 3 weeks to focus on the life skill. And so their job as ambassadors is to go into classrooms they've been assigned to. So they're in their own classroom, or in a kindergarten classroom, or a first grade classroom, what have you. We were doing it for our preschool award this year because we have ambassadors to be able to do that. But they're going to go in and they're going to present a lesson of a life skill about every 3 weeks. And next year we'll probably up that, but we got to start somewhere, so that's where we started. So how they were chosen, they were nominated by their teachers, and then they had to fill out a job application like everybody else in this world does. Guess I shouldn't have it back to you guys, should I? I was looking at them because apparently they're important ones, but really you are, so I apologize for that. But that's why they're here. So they're going to run you through a lesson. We're going to partake as part of it as well. I only made 8 copies, so sorry for the friends that aren't official board members. You won't be able to participate on the final part of it unless you want to make copies for yourselves. So, all right, this is Jack Clark, and he's going to start us off.
Hi, my name is Jack Clark, and I'm one of the ambassadors at Oak Trace. And we give a lesson to the class every 3 weeks, and we start off with a smiling handshake. So, nice to meet you. 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 And then we have to use this thing that's called the stars. So basically the stars is you have a sheet right here with you, and it just helps us to understand as ambassadors what we're supposed to follow. So the first one is a smiling handshake. To do at the beginning of the lesson. We have to teach the lifeline wherever we go. We have to have a good attitude. we have to remember our eye contact with everybody, and we have to speak up. So what we'll do is we'll give the teachers an evaluation sheet on how we did in 1 to 10 on certain categories, like if we followed what we're supposed to do. And then after that, we will go to community circle and ceremonies. So we're going to get started with the community circle, and Amy's going to talk to us about that.
You guys want to stand because I don't think the camera can see you. You can come on over, ladies.
My name is Aiden, I'm the past mentor of Trace, and when we go into community circle, we talk about caring and what it means to actually, what it means to show care, and that means to be able to show concern for others, especially at school, if someone falls on the playground, help them up, and if they're hurt, go to the teacher. And the other thing we do in community circle is we talk about the hearts, the little heart to show you care. And which means that we had the kids cut out a heart and write how they care on the heart, and then we want to color it, and then yeah.
So we're going to do community circle right now, okay? All right. Who wants to start? Okay. We'll go clockwise.
My name
What
is
kind of clock?
Or we're looking up instead of down.
You're good.
My name is Atticus Clinton, and normally our show parent is by helping me what it says. My name is Aiden, and one of my show parent is with yellow someone to sit with that lunch and go sit with them. My name is Harley, and if the papers how about at in the bathroom, I would pick them up. My name is Ariana Ollie, and I'm actually caring by helping other students with homework if they don't understand the directions.
I'm Mr. Atherton. I show caring by making sure all the students and staff of Trace see the smile sometime every day. You gotta go.
I gotta go. Oh gosh, my name is Jill, and I show caring by asking people how they are when I see them in the hallway.
My name is Chris, and I show caring by helping Jill with her notes in her new position.
My name is Amy, and I show caring by smiling and saying hello.
Hi, I'm Amber. I show caring by helping kids with homework.
My name is Dwayne. I show caring by telling Chris and Jill how much I enjoy the notes they're doing in their good job.
My name is Sherry, and I show caring by possibly sending a card to someone who maybe isn't feeling so well or has had a bad day.
My name is Dan, and I show caring by saying thank you.
My name is Mary, and I show caring by sharing.
My name is Brian, and I show caring by asking people
My name is Lynn, and I show caring by rooting for all the kids in the cross country.
My name is Jack, and I show caring by just trying to make people always have a positive attitude and have hope.
So some of your friends up there have your hearts. If you wish to participate, we have these on posters for the students, because every student wrote one of those hearts, and you can fill them out and send them to the Oak Trace, and we'll put them on those boards if you'd like to. Great, it's up to you. Good? You survived. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank
Thank you, guys. Don't leave yet, guys. Don't leave yet. Don't leave yet. Don't leave yet.
Do you have any questions related to the ambassador program or class? Great job sharing your lifeline with Carrie.
The eye contact and smile. You guys are doing just what you said you're trying to do. So while everybody else sees the back of your head, we get to see what a great job you're doing. You guys are great.
Thank you for having us. Awesome.
And we just have a couple of little items here, a water bottle and actually a frisbee. A frisbee. So thank you so much for coming this evening. Great job. Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Lynch, for being here with us. So moving on with our agenda this evening, we have some additional presentations. So we're very excited this evening to have representatives from CSO Architects and then also from the Skills Corporation. And I'm just going to turn the presentation over to you, and if you'd like to do more formal introductions and
Thank you. My name is John Rickson with CSO Architects. We're just going to quickly give everybody an update on kind of where we are. I know this is a big decision and a big effort that we're going to do. This is why we're doing what we do. And so we spent quite a bit of time, and as you may or may not recall, the plan all along was to try and get the intermediate school, middle school, moving forward at a more rapid pace than the high school. With the high school needing quite a bit more study from a programmatic standpoint. And so we've been working carefully with the schools and staff and administration and getting their input and then coming back and revisiting that. And then Victor Landfair here with Skillman, he'll be sharing with you some cost information and schedule. So tonight, Neely is our project manager for intermediate schools, middle school. We're going to give you an update on the design of that. We have plans for you to see. And then Jeff Olson, who's passing out for the handouts, is our project manager for the high school project. And he'll give you an update on where we are in the programmatic phase of the project in terms of just kind of getting our arms around how big, where things should go and how big they should be. So with that, I'll let Andy go ahead and take over.
Thanks. As John said, we've got a two-part presentation, so I'm going to run through the schematic design update for the intermediate school and middle school. We've been working with Ryan and Annette on those to get them to where they're, in fact, where they're building tomorrow and Friday, to continue going through with meetings with user groups and teachers. And so then I'm going to wrap up, and Victor's going to go through the estimate for the schematic design to show you where we are with the budget, and then he'll hand it off to Jeff. Jeff will pick it up. So we'll just jump right in. We've got a lot of images, so we want to kind of get through them fairly quickly so we don't take too much of your time. We'll start with the intermediate school. This is just an aerial look down on it. The light green areas are the two additions that we're looking at doing. Find out what the laser is. So there's the classroom addition that ties the north and sort of northeast wings together right there. We have the MPIF addition down here with the new gym and additional music and Project Lead the Way classrooms there. Then the whole white part is the existing building. On the site itself, we're looking at expanding the parking here to the south with about 40 parking spaces. And for an alternate bid, we've got another larger expansion of about 100 parking spaces to push down toward the softball field to the south. So those are the things we're trying to look at on the site. We're trying to take care of some parent drop-off pickup down here at the south end of the site, especially as far as getting some additional parking, but also some extra drive length there at the parking lot. So that just gives you a quick overview of where the additions are and how they're tying onto the building. When we step in a little bit closer, again, this is the MPIF multi-purpose facility addition up here with the gym. We've got some band rooms right here, and another classroom that replaces a room where we push through this corridor from that wing there. We come down into the existing cafeteria over here, and as we work down through where the current media center is right across the hall, we're turning that into expanded cafeteria space here. We're adding about 14 tables, about 112 kids to the seating from what they have now. To increase that, we also are putting 2 music rooms here, plus a third music room up in the new addition that bring music down into this area just across the hall again from where we're sitting right now. So that's a big renovation right in the middle of the building where the media center is. And then, of course, the media center pushes to the other end of the courtyard and then takes that area down there, fills it out. We're looking, I'll zoom in on these a little more quickly here in just a second, and gives you an orientation of the center of the building there where all the students are coming together pretty much around the media center. And then here's that classroom addition down here, this time those two wings together on the first floor. We are doing some conversion to the existing band room that becomes art because band is moving up here to isolate some of the louder classroom activities out away from the academic areas. And so art will be there across the hall from the current art room on this end. And then we're doing some more work with classrooms and restrooms up in the core of the building as we displace some things in the center of the media center. I'll just keep flicking to the larger picture just to help you see things a little bit better. Again, gym with about 300 seats in bleachers here. Mechanical and PE space to support the gym. We've got speech and just copy centers, things like that out in the building to try and distribute some more workrooms around the building. And then again, as I said, Project Lead the Way was a key component. It's actually moved around a few places. We're happy with where it's landed here with good outdoor exposure as far as getting deliveries of materials into the back. We have a good-sized lab with 2 good-sized computer classrooms that feed into that from both sides. There will be windows around most of the perimeter of this and windows between, and then a good large shared storage room between all of those. So that kind of gives you the core of the building, core of this new addition. Again, including a new restroom down here to help support these facilities as far as being able to use them in after hours and not have people drifting too far into the building. Classroom addition, we're adding essentially two teams to the building here as far as the triads go, and then we also have some special needs spaces that are getting balanced out around the building, a new classroom block or a new restroom block there, and then again time through an existing wing here, so we have some renovation work where we push through a classroom and then replace that back out in a new addition. But pretty straightforward. We'll look at some images here in just a second. Renovation-wise, as I mentioned before, we are expanding the cafeteria by basically that rectangle right there, pushing out into the current media center. There are 3 skylights to keep oriented with right here. We're centering a corridor on those skylights here, and then the new music classrooms sit here, renovated into, again, part of the current media center, and then a new music classroom here. So we have 3 music classrooms that line up along this side of the building. We're working on a better receiving area here to bring deliveries into the building and store pallets and materials before they get broken down and put into storage and out into the building places, and then reconfiguring the faculty dining area that's in that same general vicinity now, but because of the new corridors and things, we're pushing that around. No real work in the kitchen itself. All the work is essentially out in the cafeteria, additional seating for that. Media center, we're working on creating not a typical media center, but working with what I'm sure heard the term makerspace, where we're going to be creating more of a project-based kind of orientation of the media center. You see these small breakout rooms for group projects. They break back out then into the makerspace to go back and forth. We aren't getting totally rid of the stacks. They are still spread around the building and the circulation desk, but we want to give it a good open feel, a lot of visibility from the corridor, like your current one has as well. We try and open it up as much as we can there. And they have direct access to this courtyard now, so they'll be able to come and go with other activities that can spread out from that maker space right out into the courtyard. And we're moving the TV studio space down closer to this so that we can connect the 2 activities. And just an aerial look at the additions. The dark roofs are the new additions. So here's the new gym and the connecting spaces around that with band and Project Lead the Way. There's the new addition back there as far as the classroom addition goes. It's the same height as the current, one of the later additions that was put on the end of this wing to tie around the end of the building there, but essentially closes off what is an open area with a pond in the center. We are keeping the pond. We do have to lose a few trees to get that in there, but the courtyard will still contain the pond that it's got now. Just a ground level view kind of from the drive out there of that 1-story addition. This is going back to the entrance, and straight through that door would be into the courtyard, so we can get some good access to and from the outside perimeter of the building. The lighter areas, just to give you some differentiation, this is existing and that's existing back there, so the darker area is the new addition. And then into the gym addition, again from the west, looking back, this is the connector kind of back where there's a corridor with band rooms across the hall. But the gym, you get the feel for the scale. Good-sized gym that will basically house volleyball and other full-size high school gym court. Any questions quickly on the intermediate school before I move on?
Is there a reason why we're not doing a two-story on that section that's connecting?
Yes, as we looked at budget and we looked at classroom counts and needs, we worked back and forth with Annette to try and make sure we were meeting we were trying to get all the triads in that we were doing, and we could do that, and then keeping it in budget, that was one area where we could get the square footage down to still meet that requirement. Any questions?
Could we add on there later if necessary?
At the moment, we haven't really talked about whether you can do a second story. That'd be a lot of prep at this point, so whether we could plan that now might be a little difficult. It's not impossible, but at this point, we're not planning to do that. That would put your building way up over 1,600, so it's a matter of how big is too big, and there's some discussions about that as we were going through that process as well. We wanted to make sure our budget, Victor will share that with you just a little bit. Anything else? I'm sorry.
What's been the teacher instructor involvement?
We met, let's see, we've had a number of meetings, and Annette, you have a group of people that meet.
I have a committee, and so every time I meet with Andy, then I meet with the committee. And so this Friday, we're picking out the conference room, and they all get to come in and talk and discuss like cabinetry and things that they need in those classrooms. And we have a wide range. We have the related arts team, veteran teachers, new teachers, a little bit of everyone.
And this is schematic, so the next step is, as Annette just said, we're going to talk about the cabinets, and just the layout of the rooms and the technology in the rooms to make sure that we've got that level of detail now incorporated into the plan. And making sure that after this one, make sure we have all the right number of rooms, and we've got that covered, and they're all relating to each other in the right configuration. On the middle school site, in past editions, you might have seen an addition here. So again, we worked through the budget, we worked with Brian on the layout of classrooms in the building. We've been able to work to one addition on the building, which is again the multi-purpose facility addition up here. And just a little bit of site reconfiguration around the front of that. Really, the parking lot itself doesn't get impacted too much. It's just more how the drives work right around the front. The front loop drive doesn't change at all. We do push the receiving yard that's right in this area with the trash containers, and then also receiving for the building is pushed out essentially a little bit farther. But on the south and east and west sides, there's very little change as far as what's going on. We have a few new sidewalks tying out the new corridors in the building, but keeping the site as unimpacted as possible. And that ripples out into what we do with the Hamilton County Drainage Board and all the things that we're trying to keep those costs to a minimum as well as far as hard surface development. And on the overall look, a little more zoomed out here, but we've got the addition on this corner here. And all the blue is the heavy renovations. So you can see this project's a lot more renovation, working back through, putting a new office area up towards the front. One key component to this design is bringing the corridor through from the front lobby area, tying back down to the west side of the building and off into the new addition here. So we can get a good circular flow around through the building and just balance the flow of kids, especially coming from the east side of the building. They can get to the center cafeteria area coming this direction, or down through the corridors and in from the south end as well. So it's going to balance the flow in the building a little bit better and help the east-west travel through the building to get over to the specials and the music and the marching music's on the other end, but the band and the gym area. And then we have the center court area that's currently offices is going to stay offices, but we're going to have guidance up at this end and special ed offices down at this end, and we'll look at to zoom in on that. Then the cafeteria itself, because of that corridor going through, gets reconfigured a little bit. We're taking out the operable wall, that's where that blue band is right there, and reconfiguring the dish return area so that it's one large cafeteria essentially. But we're still looking at increasing the count up to almost 480 seats in the cafeteria from what's currently about 350. So, I'm going from memory on some of those numbers there. And then we have a few other areas where we're working all the way down through what's currently the band area up here gets reconfigured for Project Lead the Way and some other regular classrooms. Then the current gym gets broken up into large classrooms and another multi-purpose room that helps with flexibility of spaces in the building, and one other performing arts space that's in this corner. Then we have, in the old pool space, we've got band and choir located down there, taking advantage of that balcony area where the seating used to be. We're reworking the HVAC so that upper level can also be some practice rooms that are accessible through the 2 stairways that are existing in that area. So we have practice rooms on the first floor and practice rooms up on the balcony that overlooks the band and choir rooms. And then we do have some renovation down here in an old LGI that we're going to convert to classrooms. And then the fitness center gets cleared out and kind of cleaned up and make one good large functional space down in that area. We'll zoom in just quickly on those areas just to get the feel for it. We've got the gym here with again seating that equals about half of your current gym. And so that was what the athletic director asked for, but we have a large full court in the main direction, but we have 2 cross courts to be able to handle PE classes and other things in there. We have a new set of locker rooms that bank up against the existing locker rooms below, and they're connected so that you can increase the size, may not quite double it, but will significantly increase the size. They can also flow through the locker rooms to get outside to the fields out to the west. Then we do have new classrooms going along the north side of the building here and wrapping down up to where the existing end of the building is right there. So we're adding classrooms to just balance out the classroom count on the 2 sides of the building. Front office has a significant change because as you come in the front door, you'll come into a secure vestibule where these doors will be locked. You'll go into the reception area, check in, this is the reception desk, and then be allowed back into the building this direction. So that's the secure route into the building. And then principal, assistant principal offices wrapping around a core of workspaces here and internal restrooms for the staff offices in that area. And one large conference room right up toward the front. Then just on the edge of this drawing, there's some reconfiguration of the serving line to essentially kind of cut that in half. We're working with Sodexo, that's one of our meetings on Friday, to continue working with them on how to reconfigure the serving line and the dish return down in that area. And the current office area is broken in half with the dog leg there. This is the front area that's guidance. We're trying to work with as much as we can. These walls are lighter because we're not changing any of these walls down in here. We're going to shallow up these 3 spaces so we can get a quarter, and then 3 new offices up here with a conference room at that end, and flip the reception desk over from where it sits right now up to this corner so that we can get more space compacted in there. Then all these spaces are left alone down until you get to the lower end of the special ed areas and reconfiguring for a conference room, a workroom, and just cleaning up the officers from what's there now with a reception area. So that's the core there. But that was an area that we worked with Victor to try and really reduce costs in that area. We had a lot of work in there as we were reworking it earlier. And by shifting some things around, one thing I didn't mention that I do need to make a big point of here is when we get back to this plan. One thing, the plans used to have a restroom in here. We've moved that restroom down here, so we still have a restroom opening into the cafeteria, which is going to keep it on. I hope that I didn't mention that at the intermediate school, but we do have that restroom. And then it does work with some new configuration of the art room that's down in this area, and that's all in the latest schemes that Skillman has been pricing. Then we'll start working our way down through that far east area with all the big changes. Project Lead the Way is going to go into the current band room, and then we work our way back to band and choir and all the spaces here to reconfigure those to new offices and new classrooms with new quarters extending out the north side of the building here. And then this is the current gym over in that area. We've got 4 good classrooms working off of this quarter to the north, and then a large multi-purpose room that opens to the south and west. And then a percussion/music classroom that's currently kind of shoehorned into a small space that we can give them more appropriate space for. And then going on down into the current pool area, it's getting divided about 2/3, 1/3 for the new choir room and a new band area that are really good sized band and choir rooms, and some support spaces including practice rooms on this first floor. And then these 2 stairways exist to get up to that upper deck. We're going to work on opening up the ends here so the access is through the room, not from the hallway like it is currently. And those are open back down to the band room and choir room themselves. And then just to look at that from an aerial view, again, the dark roof is that new addition. Here's the reconfiguration of the front parking lot area that you can see there. Receiving is tucked back in, really like it is now. It just moves forward with the addition, and then a new entrance into that activity portion of the building right there. And then giving you a look from the northwest here, there's the main entrance there, so you can see the new addition here with that athletics entrance there, and then the gym itself here. And then kind of swinging around, the main entrance is to our left, So that's that same entrance with the gym beyond and the drop off, the loop here in front. So any questions on the install?
I would just like to say thanks. I know that Ryan and Annette, and I know you've all been working very hard over the summer, lots of meetings and conversations and going back to the drawing board, but just kind of pointing out that really this is addressing exactly what we had set out to address with our increased student enrollment that we're anticipating at each school, along with the expansion of fine and performing arts, our STEM courses, and then also safety. That was a big item to address. So thank you for your work.
Just shut me down.
I know, I should.
We're on time, we're on budget. Well, while they're doing that, I will tell you, I've been with the Skillman Corporation. We're your construction managers, just so the audience knows. And our role prior to construction is to help the team make sure this project stays on budget. The last thing that you want to do is to take this project out to bid, public bids, and the project come in over budget, and then you have delays. Because we know one thing for sure, the kids are coming, and you need to have the capacity in your building for those kids when they're here, when they're coming. So, as Andy and his team is working with your staff to develop the design and the details of the design, we're there to provide input on constructability and any cost and give feedback. I will compliment the team, administration, and CSO. This is not the first iteration that you're seeing. You're seeing an iteration after a lot of hard work. No surprise that the first go around was a little high for your budget, and we worked together to try to find the right balance to make sure you have enough capacity for them. The number one is having capacity, and two, also meet all those educational facility goals. And I think the team is saying that we met those. I'm great saying that. If there was a slide up there, it would show that our SDS summary
is in the book. So.
Yeah, or is it in the book? Yeah. The project budget for these two buildings was set in the range of 35 to 37 million. We're right underneath the top end of that budget. I'm going to talk in terms of construction costs for a few minutes because I want to make sure you're clear. Construction cost is the cost that we're driving. It's the bricks and mortar component of your project, right? And you have cost to build things, and you have the cost to deliver. As you see at the bottom line of this, there's a 30% factor on the total construction cost. That captures all those soft costs that we'll have. We'll get into those details as we move forward, but that is 30% is the budget for those soft costs. And we're really talking about tonight the hard costs. As you see for both buildings, roughly the new construction is very similar. We have about $7 million of new square footage in both of the buildings. You see that the intermediate school has about 3.8 million of interior renovations. That was all the blue shaded areas on your floor plan, and that's reconfiguring, demolition, and taking into account those new spaces within the existing building. So at the middle school, there's quite a bit more of interior renovation. As you can see, there's almost $10 million worth of interior renovations, and there's a lot more blue area. We're touching a lot more of that interior of that building. And then relatively, both of those buildings have between $600,000 of site work for the intermediate school and about $544,000 worth of site work. Not a significant amount of site work. Most of your project is building square footage.
What is site work?
Yeah, let me. At the middle school, the site work is relatively limited to the reconfiguration of the drive where you have the new addition on the north side. It also relates to some of the less glamorous things that Andy didn't spend any time talking about, which is all the pipes under the ground, the sewer piping, the water piping, the sanitary, all that stuff that has to be reconfigured as you add on to the building. At the intermediate school, it's the same situation. You have additional parking areas as well as those underground utilities. I will make a comment. You'll see that we have what we refer to as alternates. And you'll hear us talk about alternates as we go through this process. And that is those things that have been identified as an important need, the things that we've set back underneath the base project. And that was, for example, some additional parking at the intermediate school. We've identified that as an alternative cost, which means we'll get a separate price. We go out to bid on that information, on that component of the project. And based on how the bids come in, you'll be able to select that alternate or not select that alternate. That's a way for us to protect your budget against swings in the marketplace.
There were also pieces of the, correct me if I'm wrong, but we had some maintenance kinds of things as well. I think you guys had worked on project list for us
Yes.
as well. And so, you know, there may be things in the renovated areas that would be also covered under some of those maintenance things maybe. And I'm assuming you guys are tracking those to make sure that, you know, we spend money here, we don't have to spend money there. Maybe we don't have to spend both places.
Absolutely. That's more of that stuff that's not very glamorous. Andy doesn't do a lot of presentations, but
There's a lot of somebody's doing the not glamorous stuff.
we're doing the down and dirty. And it's a very good point, especially, I would say, well, at both buildings. You're adding on to existing buildings and you're remodeling within. We have to address both existing infrastructure, reconfiguring it, and then you're making the buildings bigger. So we're going back to, for example, your boilers and chillers. And in some cases, you have capacity within that to handle the extra square footage. But in some cases, we're having to replace those pieces of equipment with new, larger pieces of equipment. So, for example, in the middle school, we need to replace the chiller and the boilers because of capacity. So fortunately, those are also on the life cycle that need to be replaced anyhow. So you're kind of getting
That's
big
right.
bang for your buck because you're able to do that. But Andy mentioned that we are at a schematic level here. So we're still fairly early in the process of the design. I mean, the design looks very well developed in terms of the floor plan, but there's lots of details and decisions yet to be made. But we have been given a narrative, and the engineers have spent some time, so we know things like that we have capacity in the boilers. We know that we have to run additional piping and various things like that. And so we're trying to capture those things in this construction cost, even though, quite frankly, what we're trying to do is identify those costs of things that are not told yet, not in it. So we feel pretty good about our estimates. We've looked at the cost per square foot of each area, and we think that the footprint that's shown and the mix of spaces, I think we think very comfortably that it will fit within your budget. We're recommending that you move ahead to the next phase of the
Real quickly, Victor, you have a question?
Yeah, what is the added square footage on each of the buildings? Do we get that?
It's kind of, we have some, not on that, which is, I got some posted notes because I was prepared for that. On the intermediate school, we are adding about 40,000 square feet of new construction between the two additions. One's about 35,000, the other 25,000, the other one balances out that. And then we've got about 25,000 square feet of renovation in the intermediate school. Middle. We've got new construction of about 34,200 on that MPIF addition. And as Victor said, a lot more renovation. The renovation of the intermediate is 62,700 square feet.
Any other questions about the estimates? This is one of 3 estimates that we will do before we actually go out to bid. So as Andy's team develops more information and more detail, we'll do another estimate. then finally do one final estimate before we go out to bid, all with this goal of not taking on more than your budget allows and not having any delays by bidding on budgets.
Our next target at the end of this month, beginning of October, we'll be giving them another design development set, what we've got all of what we're going into now, which will have cabinetry shown and all those kind of things, doors, more detailed, so that Victor's guys can actually do a detailed takeoff instead of some of the circles that they have to do now. So,
And then just,
I just have one other silly question. I just read something in the high school, you know, how the hallways are so crowded, that is there something that we're designing in both these buildings, I don't know, to have capacity and space in the hallways so that they don't feel so overcrowded?
we aren't doing a lot back in the existing building here, other than what we're tying in, and we are opening some areas up around the activity center part of the building. But going back into the wings, the budget was pretty tight as far as where the money was allotted, so we haven't pushed into the wings themselves a whole lot.
but the middle school, you're actually providing another way to get
That's
to
true,
those
we're adding,
levels.
yeah, we're already adding a quarter too, but first that one main quarter, then also we've added another one right behind in the band area, so there's a little bit more east-west flow there. So even though we're not wiping all the quarters out, when we are doing the work, we're trying to make it much better.
It just, this is a real basic concept of the schedule. I think we've seen this before. The blue bars represent the design phase, which is now through January. Then we'll be bidding both projects at the same rough period of time. And then our expectation is to start construction in the spring. You see two bars, the two red bars represent construction. There's a lot more detail to work out, but in general, our strategy is we're going to build new first and then go back and renovate areas so that we have some place to move folks into. We're going to take advantage of those two gray bars, those vertical bars, which are in 2 summers, to do any work that we can while school is in session. But when I say there's a lot more work to do, not only is there the planning of that individual construction components, but there's also how are we going to go into the existing building and displace folks to do that work. We're going to be working very closely with your building staff to develop that strategy, because number one goal is to keep construction away from students and staff, to minimize disruptions, dust, noise, and all that, but still be working in fully occupied buildings during pretty lengthy times, 7-8 months at the end of the phase.
So I'll ask you a question that's, okay, it's kind of a tough question.
So, tough question?
I think so. So I know you're taking direction from us, being our staff, about the timeframes, especially for the high school. So you know, what is the impact for moving the high school pieces up? So one of the things I'm noticing on the timeline is there's concurrent renovation happening with construction at the other 2 sites. But that's not necessarily happening at the high school. So but what would be the impact of moving the high school, I mean, other than money? Yeah.
You mean getting a design faster?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's your risk.
That's a tough question.
Yeah.
That's not my question.
I mean, I'll let Jeff talk about where the design process is, but you can see the level of detail that Andy and his team has put together on those 2 projects, and I think the scale of that was pretty well determined for some time now. So I would say this is where you need to be on the high school in order to be on schedule to bid the project on this. And I have not seen that on the high school thing yet.
Okay, so I mean, I think it's probably something that we're going to ask about, just to be fair. And, you know, I think probably if the design phase all happens up front, you know, to me, getting things done faster, especially at the high school, is at least something that I'm interested in. And I think that I know that there's direction from the staff, administration, and all those other things, but the high school, at least, I know some of the discussions that I've heard and had, that having that done more quickly is of interest.
I think the high school is the most crowded. I mean, I know that you're under the design and feedback.
Right, let me go through it, if you would, and where we're at with it, and then we can sort of talk about design phase and maybe where we are and where we can go with moving that up.
And maybe, Jill, as we're walking through the high school too, we can talk about some of the things that have been done this year to be able to address some of those space concerns.
Sure.
And then we can talk about some of the things that maybe it's a little more complex when we're talking about the high school project, and maybe what some of those things that might be easier to think through and some of those things that are going to be a little bit more challenging for us to think through.
Right. You ready? Thanks, Let's talk about the high school. As we originally mentioned, we're about, and you can see that schedule, we're about 4 months total behind, probably about 2 months in these beginning design phases. So what we thought for this particular project was an important piece is going through a programming part of the school, because we know there's a lot of area in the school. We know there's a lot of classrooms in the school, and one of the things that we felt was really important is figuring out in the existing building how we can get some efficiency, if we can get some efficiency in those areas. For example, science areas. Can we get more classrooms in the existing building by doing simple renovation rather than adding on classrooms? So it's sort of a study we're doing to make sure that we're adding on and building and right-sizing the new addition, which is obviously more money in most cases than renovating. So we're trying to get the best bang for our buck and accommodate the new students. So what we've done so far is we've done a full analysis and a program of the existing school. So we've done an existing condition study out at the school. We've gone through every classroom, every area, and assigned an area to each space in order to do a utilization study. We've also gone on facility tours. So as the high school faculty has designated a leadership team of about 5 or 6 individuals, we've gone to visit other high schools to not only see their spaces, but also to find out and learn maybe some of the things that they would do differently, or maybe some lessons learned in their process. And then how they use the space after it's built was probably one of the more important things. Is yes, you've got a space and you want to build this new fantastic classroom addition, but are you using it the way you thought you were going to use it? Or could you tweak some things to benefit you in the long run, and in the short term too? So we've had a number of leadership team meetings to talk about priorities and goals on the project. And of course, the number one goal is accommodating the capacity in the teaching stations, creating teaching stations and that teaching environment to create an atmosphere for those 1,000 students that we know are coming. We've also had user group meetings and tours of the school. So we've met with 6 different user groups in the school. We've seen their existing areas, what they need in their existing areas, what they don't have, what they'd like to see. And we started out as a big picture. So we're approaching this as a master plan for the whole school. So what we're saying is, and it's been made very clear, some of the things may not fit in your budget right now, but we know that these things are necessary in the future, so there's a plan for the future. This is looked at as phase 1, and there may be a phase 2 and 3, but we've always identified our phase 1 as what we've shown and established in the original budget. So we've also done and gone through the building use analysis with the new and existing areas, and then also created diagrams for discussion with them. And we've had large discussions on a big scale. For example, the corridors and how those are working, because we know that the classrooms are located in that one central area with 2 stairs on each end, really, and sort of bottlenecks you in there. So how can we free up those spaces? So we've had a lot of conversations about lockers and how those work to kind of free up those corridors, because expanding those at this point would be a fairly significant construction adventure. So we talked about that, and what we know too is students aren't using lockers as much as they used to. And they're doing that for 2 reasons. 1, they just carry it in the bag. 2, the bags don't fit in the lockers. So there's a lot of efficiency that we can get out of that too, I think. And there's been a lot of different ways to handle lockers in the facilities, so we've been taking a look at that as well. And that's just one example. So, let me, there we go. So this isn't an eye test, it's just to show you the information. On the top is our utilization study. So we've gone through every class in every period and said, how many students are in each class? When is that classroom empty? Could it be full? Could we get 100% utilization out of it? And we've identified classrooms that maybe we could do that. And then on the right is the percentage of utilization for that particular classroom. So we've identified areas and subjects that are really maximizing that. We've also identified areas that maybe we could do a little bit better and rework some of that. So this is just a brief chart to look at about the capacity summary. So we're saying if we have current teaching stations and with a class size that we know classes are above the 27, well, we're using that as a benchmark because we have to start somewhere and we'd rather start a little lower if we're doing this, right? So we say it's 27 as a class size, and then we get a capacity from that, and then we use an efficiency factor. And typically, high schools and facilities of this size are around 80 to 85. Right, so what we're using is really the 85% in the middle that's highlighted in green, because what we're trying to do is get the most out of these classrooms we can. There's also a push at the high school to create an environment where some of the classrooms, it depends on the subject, but the classrooms aren't owned. So what that does is create an environment where you're switching classrooms and they can be used all 5 periods. So we sort of incorporated that in the efficiency study as well. In some areas it works differently than others in different subjects, of course. But as you go down, you're saying it'll sort of calculate the way we have it worked of how many additional teaching stations you need, and then we located a chart at the bottom what we think those additional teaching areas go to, based on our discussions, based on the efficiency of the subjects, how many subjects are being taught, and when they're being taught. So that's sort of our first pass at it, going through that way, and that'll get changed as we go through the process as well. So this is just another eye test, but it's an area calculation. So we've got in the left column is the name of the room. The next column over is the existing area associated with that room, and then the next column is what we would anticipate to be the new areas. So we're keeping track of all of that as we go through this process, especially in schematic design, to keep track of your current area and the new area we're adding. So when Victor comes on board, it's an easier process to see, okay, we're adding new to it. Do we really need those? Does that make sense for our program and what we're doing? So this is a site plan, of course. I just want to briefly show this to give you an idea of just the compactness of the site in general. Right now, it's very similar to what we proposed during the 1028. We've got the gym area and the pool area sort of on the north side there. We've got the new classroom addition shown on the south side, and we're actually showing spaces in there now, and I'm sort of letting you in on our pre-conversation with the high school about some of the studies we're doing with the classrooms, how many, what that looks like, and what the groupings of those classrooms look like. And then this pink area is that addition to the performing arts. That's not an entire addition, that's a renovation in addition to it. And then there's the building trades area over here, which we're showing renovations after talking with them. The media center in the middle, which they're actually using as an innovation center. So we're starting to call that an innovation center. And they introduced some programs that are pretty progressive for those. So we're having a discussion with their media center, innovation center folks about what we can do to sort of enhance that area as well. And of course, the administration in the front, we're going to need to increase the clinic, which is really undersized, especially with 1,000 students coming, and then creating a secure entrance in the front as well. Talking about whether we relocate the counseling center closer to the Media and Innovation Center, making that a more public area for students to use. So there's all kinds of those discussions happening. And then, of course, we've had discussions with the athletic folks about just locker capacity with the extra 1,000 students, and how it's going to affect the crowding in those areas. And we're going to have to address that with either an expansion or renovation of their existing areas. And then there's the pool area, which is still a little bit in flux, and that'll affect the way we sort of arrange that area over by the athletics as well. Whether it's renovated or not will affect if there are spaces that are able to go in or not. So that'll affect that whole domino in that piece as well. So that's the first one. It gives you a better idea of the admin, secure entrance, the media center and the areas around the media center that we may renovate. The building trades area, including the culinary piece. The classroom addition, sort of on the south side, picking up this parking area. And then this is the line of the existing performing arts. So what we're doing is utilizing the existing pieces and then adding on to the additional programs that are coming. Then you can see that the pool area here with the gym lockers, and actually the natatorium swimming pool lockers are located on this side. And then there's a fitness area, and they've actually grown so much that they've taken over 2 classrooms on that west side. So we're going to try to help them address that piece as well. This is the second floor, so what we're showing is the second floor of that classroom addition, and this is that performing arts addition from above the second floor. And then what we've really focused on too is, as I mentioned before, taking the current science area, which is divided into a lab and a classroom in each space, and creating a lab area, entire lab area. So if you think about it, you would only be using that classroom 50% of the time, either you're in class or you're in the lab. So what we're trying to do is create a classroom area, a lab that's a scheduled piece, right? So you're not at 50% utilization, you're at 100 because now you're scheduled in the lab or you're scheduled in the classroom, and you work that out vice versa. So we're taking a look at this whole lab piece here and how that works. And actually, with the storage area in the middle, there's some inefficiency in that. So we're able to gain a lot of efficiency in that whole science piece. So we've had a lot of discussions with them about how that works and how that may be renovated. And then these are this just gives you an idea of some of the classroom options that we not only saw on some of the tours, but that we talked about. With classrooms around the perimeter, with a common area in the middle, and then faculty areas off of those common areas. So again, instead of faculty having ownership of each classroom, they have a centralized faculty area with a dedicated space of their own. That way we can schedule the rooms more efficiently. So these are just some of the configurations. We've got 6 options, we'll probably have 10, just the way it works. But we've gone through all of these and tried to combine all the ideas and all the sort of methods that we saw into some options that we can talk about. So these are meant to generate discussion. So I hope that helps. I mean, it's a lot in 15 minutes to talk about in high school because there's a lot going on. So if you have any questions, please ask. I think with regard to the schedule, I think once we can sort of get the design to a point where everybody's comfortable with what's in the scope and what's not in the scope from the school standpoint, I think we can make a lot of progress in that sort of direction. But it's difficult for them to sort of grasp that 1,000 students are coming and how do we handle that and what parts are affected and what parts aren't. And so we're going through that process of trying to get efficiency out of that existing space as much as we can, because I know they want as much space as they possibly can get from this project, because they don't know, this is going to happen. We don't know if 2022 is going to happen or if 2022 is going to happen. So that's sort of our focus right now. I don't know that we could get on the same schedule as a middle school, intermediate school, but we might be able to get closer.
I was probably more, so thank you for that. I was probably more interested in the idea of overlapping the renovations with the building, like on both middle school. Yeah, I mean, they're happening at the same time, and the design stuff's all done.
I
It's not
think
flushed
that's
out
a good
now.
question. Yeah, okay. I think there's an opportunity for that. I mean, the obvious point of building new first is that you have a place to move in and then you're going to remodel. We're going to look for every opportunity to get started early, but the number one goal is to not impact education with our construction, right? So every decision is going to have to be balanced against disruption. We don't want to move staff 3 or 4 times if we don't have to. But I appreciate your point now, and we'll definitely look for more opportunities. And I think it's going to be a lot more complex than new bar, renovation bar.
Yes. I mean, I think one example would be what happens in the pool area. That doesn't, if you could take that offline during new construction, that need renovation would occur while new construction. So I think there are, but as you can see, the stage that we're at right now, we're getting ready to get to that point of Jeff was saying, but we can start to identify that over the potential opportunities that overlap. We'll feel pretty comfortable, I think, on the middle schools, that we could start to do some of that renovation before the new construction is completely done. And so I think that there'll be quite a bit of opportunity for that in high school. Now, that's not 6 months work for that, it might be 2 to 3 months.
Right.
You know,
I mean, I think my reason for bringing it up is just that I know that I'm very concerned about making sure we're gonna make the funnel really big with the intermediate and middle school, and then it's gonna get really narrow with the high school. And so as much capacity as we can build in the high school.
and with any project, these get phased, and there are certain parts of the building get turned over as the project continues. So typically, they're never, they'll always not all wind up at the same time. So, and that new addition, I think, will add quite a bit of capacity beyond what we're renovating. So there will be a little bit of cushion built into that. I can be very excited.
Appreciate all the work that's gone into design and look at all the different options.
Thank you, and I'll say, I'll give a lot of that credit to the school staff. They've done a great job of just saying, hey, and you know, we've been through this before with the high school, so they sort of know, let's see what we can do in our existing space, you know, and start to ask people, you know, can we get more efficiency out of your space? If that means, you know, you can't own a room, that's what that means in order to do that. And I think they've been very good about accepting the direction with that goal in mind for the whole project. And everybody knows those students are coming, so, you know, every time I meet one of them, they're just, let's do something, let's get it done as soon as we can. Tagging on to that, I think we get several schools too. I think the meetings with them last night were eye-opening. You know, first meeting, we didn't have that on the original list, but it was necessary, and certainly understandable. So we incorporated that and worked it through. You know, our original diagram didn't connect all those quarters together in the meeting school until we met with the next. So I got to have those connected. You can't get from point A to point B and all the way back to the building. And so that's really, I think, been very, very helpful. I think that's what's as successful as what we.
And that said, we're kind of fast tracking in a way. We had that meeting that day, then she met with her group, she emailed me, and within a couple of days, we tried to turn around those ideas quickly back to her, so we weren't waiting for another meeting down the road to try and get those accomplished.
We appreciate that as well.
I appreciate what you guys have done. For the middle school, the big thing was, you know, utilize, is one of the first things I asked was utilize existing space and make it more efficient. So, you know, through the drawings that they've come up with for us so far, feedback from teachers, this helps the middle school a lot. We no longer have just one main hallway to the west side of the building. You know, now we've got two, which is, you know, it doesn't sound like much, but when you talk about traffic flow, that takes a huge load off of our West 400 hallway when we have a new corridor to get over there. And even though, you know, we're not really making the blueprint that much bigger, we've connected through the new hallway by the new main office, we've connected a part of the east side that really has always had trouble accessing the west side. So I think from our standpoint, this puts the middle school in a really good spot for many, many years to come. And it helps with we have a lot of space on the west side, which we desperately need. There's a big, we've got a lot more classrooms on the east side than we do on the west side. So they've been able to address that also, which has been great.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Sure.
And then the last item that I have this evening included in the board packet this month were the continuous growth plans that each school put together as a part of their overall school improvement plans that are submitted to the state. And so I would just like to recommend that the board approve those continuous growth plans for each school.
There's slightly more detail. Appreciate that. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the continuous growth updates for each school's overall PL to include 221 improvement plans submitted.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Questions or comments? This improvement plans?
Yeah, I was really excited to see it. And for me, it's a journey, but these are actionable and I think they were thought of, developed. I thought they were great. Moving on.
Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Anything else? All right. Now, the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, which includes approving minutes from the last regular board meeting and claims, payroll, etc. For the month of August. So everybody's had a chance to look at those in advance. So I'll entertain a motion. Thank you. Do I have a second? Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Next, personnel. Chris.
Good evening, everyone. The updates received actually via email today. There are only about kind of two or three items in red, so not a lot of changes. The majority of personnel, you'll see just catching up on new employee orientation, pay, some of those things, and filling all those instructional assistant positions. We're getting there. So you'll notice a lot in non-certificate area filling those positions. We're down to a handful now. So credit for the assistant principals to go and get those filled. So after reviewing personnel and the updates, just ask you for personnel list with any questions.
Thank you, Chris. Do I have a motion?
I do motion to.
And I have a second. Questions for Chris on personnel? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving personnel as listed signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Nothing under old business. We've got quite a laundry list of new business. I see Brian's naming an awful lot here too, so if you want to settle in for the soothing tones of his voice, we'll go ahead and move on to the first item. Brian, yeah. We'll start out that way and we'll go down.
All right, so the first item is the 2017 refunding bond purchase agreement. Currently, Steeples planning to sell on the 20th. So we ask that you approve this, and then the final, once you sign this, this will go to Humana and local, they will sale occurs on the 20th, and then all the documents will be together.
Just a follow-up.
Yes, this is originally approved in the July meeting.
Great. Do I have a motion? Thank you. I'll go ahead and second. Any questions for Brian or Andrew? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the 2017 refunding bond purchase agreement as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Brian.
All right, so the next set revolves around the intermediate school, middle school bond that will sell early 2018 to start the process. A lot of this is honestly just the legal part of starting that process. So I have a little blurb I'll read as we go through each one, and then if you have any questions, you can ask myself.
Great.
All right, so the resolution determining the project as required by the school leasing statute, IC 2047-3, the board must determine that there is a need for the project.
All right. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to adopt the resolution determining the need for the project.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Resolution reapproving the building corporation. In order for the building corporation and not-for-profit Indiana corporation to issue taxes and bonds, the IRS requires that the school board approve the building corporation and authorize it to issue taxes and bonds on behalf of the school corporation. This is how we've done pretty much all of our debt tax history, so it's common.
Great. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adopt the resolution reapproving the resolution of the building corporation as presented.
Thank you. I'll second. Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Okay, so the resolution approving the leases is the next two. There's one for the middle school specifically, and then one for the intermediate school as well. The statement I'm about to read
applies to both.
The school corporation is funding this project through lease financing, as it is done with past construction projects. These financings are used by the school corporation across Indiana in order to borrow for renovations and construction. This type of financing does not count against the school corporation's construction debt allowance. The building corporation will purchase the real estate for the construction of additions at the middle school and the intermediate school buildings. At the closing of their appraised values will be dollars for that purchase. The building corporation will then lease such real estate back to the school. The lease rental dues from the school corporation will be paid back via the property taxes. The lease rental, which is the maximum amount of each lease, will be sufficient to pay the principal and interest due at that time. So this is just approving the form of the lease. The actual lease document itself will be approved and signed later on down as we go through the process.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Move to adopt the resolutions, one of the lease for the middle school. Has to be one at a time.
At this point, I would like to add one thing.
Sure.
As you're going through this process, I know most of you have gone through it a couple times, but you don't know the final numbers yet.
Right.
You're just approving the form of these. You're going to aim high. It sounds crazy because you aim high because you always bring it down under, but you can't go back over. So as the numbers get refined, both financial and construction, you hope to bring it down closer to the start line. It's always good to remind yourself of that.
Right.
Is it okay for us to do both at the same time?
Two forms? I think you have to set up separate motions.
Yeah, they're set up separately.
I do it separately.
Just,
Amend your motion.
yeah, and then we'll just get those.
All right. What else? So I'll second the resolution approving the form of the middle school lease. Any questions on that? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item B. I'm going to take a quick, you're so close.
Move to adopt the resolution, bring the form of the lease for the immediate school.
Thank you. I'll second that one too. Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
And the final one for this section is the intent to reimburse expenditures. If the school corporation pays any prelim costs related to the project prior to receiving the bond proceeds, it may reserve the ability to reimburse from bond proceeds after the closing. In order to do so, the IRS requires that the school corporation declare its official intent to reimburse. The adoption of this resolution will reserve the school corporation's ability to reimburse itself. As we move forward with CFO, it's going to there's a project to build before we actually go to issue bonds around February, April, so this gives us the ability to pay ourselves back.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve intent to reimburse expenditures.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item, Brian.
All right, so the CSO architect contract, obviously we've been very pleased with it so far, is up for approval. There was one slight change to the wording that we want to make is we did forward all these to the Andrew Church, and they have reviewed them. They have not found any significant changes. But what we are asking for tonight is approval and then have signature after the final review is completed by Andrew, which is simply done shortly.
Do I have a motion?
To approve the CSO agreement pending legal.
Thank you. Second? Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item, Brian.
All right, 2018 property casualty insurance. We're still using Tokyo insurance. And this year we actually came in about $4,000 under. We had a really good year, so that's you can actually lower your premiums past the year. So good job. So we asked for approval. Nothing's changed compared to last year. We have a little bit more property coverage, but then prior years just some additions or renovations. But that's the coverage.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the property casualty insurance.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any questions? all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item.
All right, the Schoolzilla contract, Mr. Britta sent me the documentation on it. I read that for this. Other than that,
Of course.
yeah, basic ending point is the contract that was actually in your packet, I believe, was 72. Right at the time that we issued the contract into the packet, we had a phone call to discuss the price of, there's a $12,000 one-time fee to bring over some of our data that we thought was a little high. So we called and talked about it. So the actual contract price is down to $66,984.74. So they dropped it by about $4,000 there. So we asked that you approve that.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the school July contract.
Thank you. I'll second. Any questions? Comments? I'll give it as what it is, and his gang. I know they've worked tirelessly trying to come up with a solution for this. And big warehouses, I'm glad they found one that I think is a workable solution. So I appreciate their efforts. All those in favor of approving the Schoolzilla contract as presented signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Brian.
All right, next item is we're requesting approval for BMO Harris computer card. Currently, we kind of have two cards, one's from PMC, one's American Express. They're both kind of scattered. There's not really a true card program in the district. We would like to start one. A lot of what that comes down to is right now we pay checks to pretty much everybody. We do have a system where we can send money other ways and get a little bit of rebate there, but for most part, most of our items pay via check. With that, there's a lot of those companies that would accept a MasterCard. So by doing that, we can actually get about 1.6 rebate on that spend for stuff we're already doing today. So we'd really like to start the program with BMO Harris. They actually have a contract with Illinois ASBO and Indiana ASBO. So it's a program that's pretty national. And if you look through the backpack, they work with several schools through Indiana and throughout the country as well. So they're a pretty well-established program. We also looked at JP Morgan Chase, who has a state contract, and American Express, who has some decent government contracts. But at the end of the day, they all have pretty similar user interfaces, and just kind of came down to who can give us the highest rebate on our spend. So the good thing with BMO Harris is on total spend, so it doesn't matter if they spend $1 million at one time or $1, we're going to get 1.6 back on that. So with that, we would ask that we proceed forward with that. What we're going to do is issue all the directors first, and then the middle school is actually going to be our test school as we kind of work on establishing what are the parameters for turning the documentation into us. And then once we get the middle school kind of established and cleared out, then we'll start issuing to the other schools as well. The nice thing for the schools is it will, instead of going through the traditional kind of purchase order process that can take weeks sometimes to get through approval of ordering, it could actually be able to immediately order that day if it's their funds that they have permission to spend already. So it can significantly increase their time as well. And then kind of the other caveat that I always ask to be included as well is we get a higher rebate for immediate payback. So what we like to do is set it up for ACH to our bank account that the day the statement hits, we pay within 7 days. It's not really a cash flow issue for us, but we end up increasing our rebate usually by somewhere around 10 basis points to increase that rebate. So that would be our request, and then with that, we expect to raise somewhere between $50,000 to $100,000 in revenue that we currently don't have today.
Thank you. Do I have a motion? Thank you. Do I have a second? Second. Any questions or comments?
I think I already know this, but tell me with the rebate, where will that fund, where will that money end up?
Yeah, so there's kind of traditionally what we would normally do is put the rebate back in the general fund. It gives us the most flexibility on where we would spend those dollars, and also that turns out their own pretty much right back to the students or programs.
Do you have like a tier program of directors at this much spending capacity?
So normally what we do is start off where pretty much everybody's between 5,000 and 10,000. Just that covers most of the day-to-day expenses. With the program, you can immediately change their spend. So if they're close and they have something that they know they need to purchase, we can adjust that and bring it back down if we need to. Normally, we will keep one card in the business office, which will have probably a rather large $750,000 limit or something, so we can process most of those bills through that one card, and that card would not leave the office.
Other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item, Chris.
Teacher evaluation, the Indiana code requires that I share the evaluation plan and explain it to the school board. I did that also to our discussion team earlier this week. And I'm required to turn in our plan by September 15th. So as you remember, I did a presentation last year on our teacher evaluation development plan. It has not changed. It's been something we've been working well with the teachers. So there's been no adjustment since the last presentation. I did provide a copy of that plan. You can also find it on our website. We are doing a presentation, Dr. Great, Dan, Nathan, and myself, and all of you rest are welcome to the school board on October 2nd to present our teacher evaluation development plan to the public. We do have a really good plan. I'd like to share that with others as well. So I just ask that you, I just have to share that there's no vote on moving on this. It's just so I can just know, have documentation that I share with you before I provide that information to the state that is correct.
Do we know that?
Thanks again for representing it at ISBA. It's good.
I'll get you guys all the details on the specifics that if I haven't done. So, I think it's October 2nd at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'll make sure I get that info to you as it gets closer to the day.
Next item, Lynn.
All right, so you have 3 grants before you tonight. 2 of them are federal and 1 is a state grant. They're all regional grants, so you've seen them in the past. The first one, Title I, this is a online submission, so sorry, it's pretty small, so hopefully you have your magnifying glasses out trying to read all the tables and things, but we continue to have the same 5 schools that qualify: Curie Ridge, Monon Trail, Washington Woods, Intermediate, and the middle school. Now, if you look at the bottom line, as far as the items of consideration that I read out, our grant was cut by more than half. So it was over $200,000 that it was cut. So we had to really scale back and look at what needs each building had, which was a good thing because we were utilizing our dollars to the fullest. So we continue at Curie Ridge, Monon Trail, and Washington Woods to use IAs to either pull out small groups or push into the classroom. And then at intermediate and middle, those IAs help to support sessions. So at the intermediate school, they've got that SRT time that each triad has. And so that's a dedicated time where all the IAs love that triad and work with groups, and then they rotate throughout the day. And then at the middle school, they actually are part of the math and language arts labs. And those classes are scheduled within the student schedules. They also use, at both of those schools, some of the money for software to pay for those opportunities. And then in addition, Intermediate and Monon also put a portion of their fund towards behavior specialists. So that's been really helpful to help on that social emotional side to get kids ready to learn. We have that extra support. That's the first grant. And then we do have 1 non-public school that participates in that same Learn Ready for the Balance. The second federal grant is Title II. We use it solely for professional development needs. So as you're aware, we had pretty extensive work around strategic planning last year. So input was gathered through our strategic planning committee, which had various stakeholders on it, and then also our two communicators meeting, in addition to our own admin staff looking on what went into this grant. So it's all based on the strategic professional development plans that you looked at earlier. We use the grant funds for 4 main areas. The first one is job-embedded professional development. So whether it's led by coaches or our principals or the learning systems department, whoever helps with subs, basically, and materials for that. Also textbook adoption, use money towards that, and get teams together as well as data review. Secondly, our advanced placement and our pre-advanced placement workshops. We have the high ability grant, which pays for some of that, but then we have carryover with the amount of teachers that we need to get certified and renewed as those courses change. The third area are just basic content and technology workshops. So we've got the Science Tasty is one every year. We've got ICTM for math that we send teachers to every year. There's the ICE conference for technology, the Google Summit, and some other Google sessions that some of us went to through last year, worked with 5 Star. So we saw when I write up about the tech coach, so we can take advantage of other things like that through these dollars. And then lastly, to help our own in-house instructional coaches and our technology coach with their training and learning, it also helps us support those workshops. We had 2 of the 4 non-publics participate in that, St. Marie Ready and the Montessori School. And then the last one is state's formative assessment. This was the request to participate. Again, it's an online submission, so it prints out kind of funky, but what this has helped us to do is to offset our general fund dollars to help pay for intermediate. And any extra dollars, since our Title I was cut by so much, the intermediate school to help pay for their software that they use, we can pay for that extra money to help offset that. And something that I did mention with Title II, we can transfer money to Title I. So you saw some handwritten on the Title I grant. I transferred $32,000 from Title II to Title I to help offset that. So we got an increase in Title II, but that increase in Title I to help us. So we did get that approval today that $32,000 has been transferred. So in addition to that carryover money, that all that handwritten, that those dollar amounts will then be plugged into the grant. So, be happy to entertain any questions, but ask that you approve the Title I, Title II, and the formative assessment grant.
Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve Title I, Title II, and Part A.
Do I have a second? Questions for Lynn? There's a lot of detail already developed through, so it's good you can take it over Title II to Title I and help offset some of that loss. I'm so slow to get. Other questions? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item is Dr. Madeline class tonight. I'm going to let Dr. Perry.
Okay. All right, so included on our agenda this evening is a rental agreement for the Abundant Life Church using space at Washington Woods Elementary School. And so I would like to recommend that the board approve this request by Abundant Life Church.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the request by Abundant Life Church to meet at Washington Woods.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item, Brian.
We have a couple of donations and small little teacher grants this month. There's a donation from Circle City Chiropractics for Washington Woods Elementary, a grant for flexible seating at Nathan Glen, a grant for 3 Leg Table Company at Washington Woods, and then Teacher Plus grants awarded to Angela Hoffman and Craig Seaman.
You. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion to accept the donation.
Thank you. Do I have a second? All those in favor of accepting the donations and grants as presented signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Should the audience go? Next regular meeting will be right back here October 10th at 7 o'clock. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Do I have a second? Do I have a vote? Aye. Meeting adjourned.